Hello and welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going answering the question we gave ourselves in a couple of videos before this one. So you may not remember whether or not you watched the video. Did we graze or did we cut this 3-acre paddock? So basically just behind me, I'll swing around the camera now in just a moment, but just in that video we were giving ourselves this question whether or not we should mow and bale the 3-acre paddock, because we shook grazing bag manure on it, but it was shook way before cattle got into it, so there was a bit of grass there and we didn't know should we let the cattle graze it and or should we have baled it. So we're going to have the answer to that in this video. But as you can see now, the cattle are in this field, which is the field beside the 3-acre paddock that we were going answering this question. So you can see on the ground they are sort of grazing it away nicely, not too bad at all. They're getting through it, not too bad. So yeah, I guess we'll head backwards and find out whether or not we cut or grazed this 3-acre paddock and why we done what we done, which is what I'm going to be explaining in today's video. So whatever choice we made, whether we baled it or grazed it, I'll explain why we done it. So in 3, 2, 1, ta-da! This is it. This is the field that we were deciding, should we graze it or should we bale it? And as you can see, we grazed it. Now we didn't strip graze it, we just put electric tape along the border of the field and whatnot, and we just let the cattle into all of it. Now they didn't have this section where that wooden stake is. There was a shape going the whole way across that way. So they only were in the first paddock and the second paddock, and then we sort of just took down that line and brought it around that stake and brought it up that way. So now they have the rest of the second paddock and they have the first paddock. So yep, we grazed it, and as you can see, it's not badly grazed. It's fairly well down, and as I mentioned, we didn't strip graze it. Mainly because just the time of year that's in it, really, just the time of year that's in it. Because they've been about 2 weeks in this paddock, and they're about coming up 2 weeks in that paddock. Then they still have to be put into the third paddock, and then they'll be brought inside into the cattle shed, where they'll probably be kept in. Any lighter cattle we might put back out. But any of the heavier cattle, cows with calves or heifers that are in calf or cows that are in calf, will remain inside for the winter. And we might then let some lighter ones out for a couple of weeks over the winter until they start bogging up the land and bring them back in again, I guess. But yeah, we do have a lot of other fields with a lot of grass and stuff, which is why we want to put more cattle out and keep them out as long as possible. But we do have to bring them in for a couple of weeks, get them dosed and all that sort of fun stuff. But anyways, yeah, the field is grazed, not baled. So as I mentioned, we put the cattle into this field in this paddock in the first week of October. As I'm recording this now, we're in the last couple of days of October. So they had 2 weeks in this field, so about the second week or the third week of October, we moved them from this paddock and we took down the strip of wire that was going across there, and we put them into the next paddock. So now that they've been in there for nearly 2 weeks, if not just over the 2-week mark, and we'll be moving them into the third paddock in the coming days or so. But why did we choose to graze this field instead of mow it? Well, several reasons. One of the main reasons was there was parts of the field that had nice big lush thick grass, but then there was other parts of the field where it was sort of thin and more or less of itself. And the other reason was there was rushes scattered, like here, just a couple of rushes just dotted around the field itself, and if that got into the silage, well then, you know, plus the grass, would the grass have been any good for silage? I don't know. And then the rushes within the silage might have upset it as well. But yeah, we didn't bale them because of that, but also we grazed it and not baled it because we wanted to keep the cattle out for that little bit longer. So we used this paddock. You know, they have the first paddock grazed, they have this paddock grazed, they have that paddock grazed, and they'll be going into that paddock. So we'll say they were in that first paddock, we were strip grazing them, so they were probably in that first paddock being strip grazed for a month. Then they were in this paddock for 2 weeks, they're going to be in that paddock for 2 weeks, and then they'll be in that paddock out there for 2 weeks. Now, it was only the 2 dry cows that were out in the first paddock for just over a month, being strip grazed. They were also in a small little field beyond the wood line there for 2 weeks, so a month or so, a month to just over a month, the 2 dry cows. And then we added a cow that was due to calf in December time, Christmas time, and the 2 bigger calves along with the first cows that calved, and we put them along with them. So that was 2, 4, 6, 7, including the calves, in that field for 2 weeks, in this for 2 weeks, and then you know what I mean, you know where I'm getting at. But for the longest time, for basically since the first time they've been let out, the 2 dry cows, the first paddock just there was the first field that they were let out on, so they were there for about just over a month. We were strip grazing them, and then for the last couple of acres or so of the field, we just let the whole lot into it and let them graze it. But as you can see here, some of it, yes, is trampled, some of it is grazed, but it might have been good to have the bales, but this year when we spread the bag manure on our silage field, it was sometime around May time. So you give it 6 weeks, it was supposed to be cut by the middle of July. We didn't get it cut until around August time, so it was a couple of weeks overdue, and we got more bales in our silage field, a 10-acre field, than we were expecting. We did have some older silage bales left over from last year, and some silage bales left over from 2 or 3 years ago. So with them added into the bales we got this year, we have more than enough. So it was also mentioned in that first video about whether or not we should be grazing or whatever this field. It should be in that video how many bales we have in total, but I think we have, I think it's 100, and I think we're just knocking on the door of a grand total of 200 bales. And we also have the 2 dry cows sold and the 6 bullocks sold, so we are a couple of cattle lighter for the winter. We're not going to use on that amount of bales over the winter with the amount of cattle we have, so we thought it was better to utilise this field by grazing it, keeping the cattle out for that little bit longer, because there was no point in baling out, because we have more than enough of silage bales to do us. We don't even have to cut silage next year if we really didn't want to, depending on how next year is, whether or not we can get cattle out by the end of April or May time, or will the weather not be that good that they won't be out until later. We have enough of bales to do us to keep them in for as long as we have to, if the weather did turn bad, but we will try and be getting them out by April, May time, once they all calved and the calves are strong and all that sort of stuff. If they do get out by April or May time, we should probably have enough of silage there to do us for the following year, even if we didn't cut next year. So we're in a very good situation with silage bales, which is why another reason we didn't bale this, because we just don't need the silage bales. We were better off grazing it, giving the cattle the grass and keeping them out for that 2 extra weeks. So yeah. Now when it comes to this paddock here, I know for a fact where we need to get into, where the rushes are, we won't be able to get into this side of the year for topping. As you've seen, there was a lot of water lying on top of the surface. That this bit here is probably the softest part of the second paddock, so we won't be getting in there this side of Christmas anyways. In 2024 we probably won't be getting in here topping. For this paddock we probably could get in, but we won't get stuck or anything in this section. But with the narrow tires and stuff, the ground that little bit softer, dragging a topper on the ground, you probably will do a small bit of bogging. So you will leave small minor tracks, but nothing major. So I think what we could do is leave this paddock, that first paddock is topped. We'd have to leave that until it dries up sometime next year, and more or less the third paddock as well. So if it was me, you know, you could probably get in here, no bother, get this section here topped. But if it was me, I'd leave it until sometime next year, maybe springtime. If we get if March, the month of March comes good, April comes good, May comes good, basically before we decide to let them out, the cattle out, just get this topped. If we can get a couple of good months to dry up the ground, that we can get in with a tractor and topper and just do a sight of topping, because this one would have to be topped. The third paddock will most likely have to be topped when it's grazed, and obviously that would have to be topped to manage the rushes, and tidy it up a small bit as well. But I guess once it's topped, if we can get it topped in March or April, weather dependent, if the weather is good, we can then come in here and just shake grazing bag manure wherever we want to. Grazing bag manure, don't know when we'd be spreading the grazing bag manure, but we'd want to top it first and then spread the grazing bag manure, so that we're just topping any of the we're topping rushes as well. You can see there's bits of rushes in this paddock as well. That one desperately needs to be topped, but just top the grass that was grazed, just to get rid of any uneven clumps that's in the field, any bits of grass that the cattle didn't eat, because wherever the cows lie, do their toilet duties, so that's, you know, 2 different toilet duties there. They don't tend to eat the grass in a specific radius around that. Like this pile of dung here, a certain radius around that, they're not going to eat the grass. That's just how it is, you know. So you can see here there's still a good lump of grass there. Get the topper, cut that, get it all low, nice and even, ready for fresh youth grass to grow, and then spread bag manure on it, grazing bag manure, and then let the cattle back out then next year whenever for grazing. So yeah, but you can see it is fairly good and grazed and tramped as well, because we didn't strip graze it. We didn't strip graze it because if we strip graze it, that means they'd be longer in the field. We could be 3-4 weeks, possibly even 5 weeks strip grazing this field, and then they wouldn't have gotten into that to graze it, or they won't be able to get into that to graze it, because they'd be spending too long in this field. So that's why we didn't strip graze it. We just let them out. They'll eat and trample whatever they eat and trample. They'll be in it for 2 or 3 weeks, which they were, and then move them on to another paddock. Because the strip grazing just prolongs the whole situation. Yes, they'll trample less, eat more grass, they'll eat it lower down to the ground, but it'll also take that little bit longer for them to get to the whole field when you're strip grazing it, rather than just letting them loose, free range into the whole paddock. So yeah. So I have a couple of comments from that first video I made. It's saved here on the phone. So any questions I will answer. I'll read out the comments. So one person said, at this time of year you're not going to get any or very little aftergrass growing, and it will leave the ground very bare if we get heavy frost this winter. Which is true, because when we baled our silage field in August, we put slurry on it then just about maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and there's not a whole lot of aftergrass in it, to be honest with you. We were hoping that there'd be a bit more aftergrass into it, and we let the lighter cattle out, like the lighter heifers that aren't in calf, out in that after we bring them inside and dose them and whatnot, put them out onto the aftergrass. But there's not much grass there. It's only like a carpet of grass in the aftergrass in the silage field. So, you know, that's that field out of the question, grazing the aftergrass, because there just isn't any aftergrass. So yes, if we did bale this field, most likely this time in the year, when grass growth starts to slow down and stop, there'll be nothing really. The ground will be bare. If frost comes, and once that frost thaws out, the ground will be way more softer than what it would be with grass covered on it, because the grass will help it you know, keep it sort of somewhat sturdier, the ground, rather than it just being bare and getting a lot of rain or frost or whatnot. So which will slowly grow down next spring. If you want to keep out your cattle for a few more weeks, graze it, which we did want to keep them out for as long as we could, a few more weeks, so we grazed it. If you cut, you might end up feeding sooner, which yes you would, because we're cutting basically a paddock of a field that we could have used to graze and keep the cattle out longer, and we don't even need the bales really. So depends how tight your stocking rate is. We are so far 8 cattle lighter, so whether or not we'll buy some maybe lighter bullocks in or lighter heifers in, we don't know. But our stocking rate is 8 cattle lighter at this moment in time. Personally, I wouldn't cut and prefer to keep the cattle out, same as us. That's the decision we made. I cut some silage early in September. The field is still pretty much bare even after spreading slurry. Might get one day grazing it. The same as our silage field. We mowed it, we baled it, we got our silage off it, we got the slurry out on it. Over a month now. You can just go back to the channel and look at the slurry videos, and that'll tell you when we put out the slurry. So it must be over a month, coming on to a month. And there's still not a whole lot of aftergrass on it. Only one thing to do with it is graze it. 'Tis all butts, which it was. There was a lot of it all butts and stuff, and you can kind of see it as well, that the majority of it was just mainly butts. He said waste of time cutting it, strip graze it, keep a few cows and calves going for a fortnight or so. As I mentioned, if we were to strip graze it, they'd be maybe halfway through the field, 3/4 the way through the field in 2 weeks time. They'd nearly have another week or two before they even graze this field. As I'm making this video at the end of October, they'd probably still be in this field grazing it, probably just finishing up. They'd be nearly at the end of the tether of the field if we strip grazed it, and we'd still have all that field to graze there, which is what they're in now grazing for the last 2 weeks, and they'd still have that to graze. So we'd still have a whole lot of silage and fields ungrazed by the time, if we strip graze this field, by the time they go back into the house. So even though strip grazing it might have been better and whatnot, there's a lot of advantage and disadvantage to each, but we decided just to let them out free range into the whole field and try and get as much of the paddocks grazed as possible before we do let them back into the house again for the winter. Another comment said, would graze it off if you're thinking to have enough of bales, because silage is expensive to make, which we do have more than enough of bales. And yes, silage is very expensive to make. Unless you're on the end of the person making them, then you're probably making a lot of money. But for a lot of farmers, you're on the end of getting the bales made, so you have to spend and pay for your goods and services that a contractor offered you. The last comment here, bale it, the grass will come faster next year, which sort of contradicts the earlier comment, which said the grass will grow more slowly. But I guess if we have it grazed, we're hoping then sometime next year in springtime, if we get good weather and the ground gets more harder than what it is now, we top it, put bag manure on it, and more grass should then grow once it starts warming up, late spring, summertime next year. So yeah, anyways, that was our decision. We decided to graze it, not bale it, and we didn't strip graze it. So I think, see, the black one here is still sort of getting pickings out of it. So there's still a bit of grass in this paddock. They're still getting pickings of grass out of it. But other than that, grass seems to be good. They didn't eat it as further down to the ground as they would have if we did strip graze it. But it is what it is, because they will be going into the shed in the next week or two. So we'd want to start planning on fencing the third paddock for them and letting them into that for a week or two before they go into the shed. But yeah, it is grazed. You can see the areas that are grazed lower, because that's where the less grass was. Any areas that has a bit more grass there, even though it is grazed, was the areas where there was where the grass is more thicker and lusher in itself. But you know, there's still pickings of grass here and there. They're still picking, and they're still picking grass in this paddock, and they're still picking grass in that paddock. So yeah, that is going to be the end of today's video. I know what some of you have thought what we should have done from the previous comments and the previous videos, but you can then sort of come back and comment again whether or not we made the right decision. Should we have baled it? Were we right to strip graze, or were we right to graze it, or should we have strip grazed it? But I did give you my opinions on why we grazed it the way we did, and why we didn't bale it. So that is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out my merch. The link to that will be down in the description, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Take care.